would even encourage people if they're seriously thinking about making a career switch or they want to be an active investor and they just don't know where to start. Maybe they don't have that money to hire a coach or join a program. Like I said, just find a job in the industry. Whether there's so many different jobs, it doesn't even have to be directly related to investing.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Ballara and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Lindsay Sharma. Lindsay is the founder of Lindsay Sharma Property Buyers. Her company specializes in buying houses in any condition in Arkansas and Ohio. She focuses on not only on buying real estate, but empowering women with her wholesaling course. I'm sure we'll touch on some of that. And also a mother to 3 children under 4, which sounds chaotic having 2 of my own. So first of all, let me just say thank you so much for coming on the show today, Lindsay. I really do appreciate you taking the time out.
Thanks for having me, Jason. I'm excited.
Awesome. Let's just start by letting you tell your story. Tell us your background, kind of what brought you into real estate, all of that, and then we'll dive in from there.
Sure. So I grew up in Toledo, Ohio. So I'm a Midwestern girl. It's a very blue collar area. My parents were blue collar people. My dad had multiple jobs sometimes just to make sure everything was covered in our household. And I think that kind of upbringing really, influenced me and what I wanted out of my life. I was fortunate enough to go to college and I have a degree in graphic design. I did a lot of freelance graphic design upon graduating because I graduated in 2007. As we know, 2008, we had the financial crisis, the recession. So it was very difficult to find a job as a recent college grad. So I had to kind of make my own job by just taking side jobs, taking gigs, using my skills as I could. And I worked in various companies, various roles that had nothing to do with what my education was. So I kind of got a lesson in, that the job market can be unpredictable, jobs can be unpredictable. And it gave me sort of this sense that, what I was taught growing up, go to school, get a good job, get an education, you'll live a comfortable life, just wasn't proving to be true. So I started to get interested in entrepreneurship, started educating myself on financial freedom, building wealth, things of that nature. And I kind of got a little burnout in the design field and decided I want to make a career switch. And I started picking up more and more books on real estate investing, listening to podcasts. At that time, I think this was maybe 2017, around that time. Bigger Pockets was a pretty popular podcast. I was listening to that a lot. And so I thought, well, now is a great time to kind of switch my career. But I just really didn't know how to get started in real estate like most people. I had a little bit of knowledge, but I was really fearful and just confused about the process. So I thought, hey, why don't I see if I can get a job in real estate investing in some capacity? And I didn't really even know what that meant at the time. And I started searching on Indeed, and I found a local investor in my area who was hiring for an executive assistant. I had no executive assistant experience whatsoever, but I think running my own business for some time, I had to wear a lot of different hats, and I kind of pitched myself in that way. And I was lucky enough to get hired by this investor, worked for him for 3 years. I learned so much from what he was doing, and I actually bought my first property while I was working with him.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think, really good messages for people there. One, you said you decided you want to get into real estate because you saw the unpredictability. I think a lot of us that were in that, sort of 2007, 2008, that financial crisis, especially at, I guess, important periods in a career, it definitely opened your eyes. It kind of lets you know what could happen, what the possibilities were. Certainly people in real estate during that time also had some struggles. So it was just recognizing, how you can, how that type market factors, whether you have a W-2 job and you're employed or you're an entrepreneur and real estate investor, like all of these things, you can have impact on kind of your overall financial outlook. But you did mention something about, kind of in 2017, you were looking at potentially getting into real estate and you were just had some fears and had, lack of knowledge. And I wanted to, I guess, dive in a little bit on that. Like, how did you get past those fears, maybe some limiting beliefs? Because I think everybody has that stuff. They're like, this looks good. This looks like people are doing well here. What do I need to do to be a part of it? And I think one thing is people don't realize that there's about a million different ways you can be a part of it. But also, like, at some point, you got to get past that, kind of mindset.
Sure. Yeah, the fears were there. They were just, I'm kind of a detail-oriented person. My design background really, kind of taught me to be that way. And there's so many steps you have to learn to start investing. There's different strategies. And so to help me with that, I just knew I couldn't do it without seeing it modeled by someone. And that's, again, goes back to just finding a job working for someone else. And to me, being in it every single day, kind of like immersing myself in this industry that I've never worked in, I just felt like that was going to be a great way to learn the ins and outs. And I feel like for me personally, knowledge and action and interacting with people who are doing this every day just builds my confidence, because just having someone sitting in the office next to you asking questions, I think really can help you feel more at ease and supported.
Yeah, such great points there. And like, there's so many like mentorships and teaching programs and all of this out there, and people think, I almost think that scares people off, because they think, oh, if I want to learn about real estate, I got to go do one of these mentorship programs. It's going to cost me X number of dollars, generally in the 10,000, 20,000. I mean, it's a large amount of money, and people may not have that. And mentorships have been a big part of my career, my journey. But a mentorship doesn't need to be always a paid mentorship. It can be something like exactly like what you did, where, essentially you're doing almost like an apprenticeship, right? You just go work for someone who's doing what you want to do, and probably that's the best mentorship, the best, sort of training program that you can actually get into. And oh, by the way, you might get paid to do it rather than pay. It takes, probably you're committed to that, maybe a little bit more time of your week. I mean, it's just, there's different ways to approach it, but I think what you did is a very, very smart way to kind of get in and gain the knowledge and confidence that you spoke of.
Yeah, and I would even encourage people, if they're seriously thinking about making a career switch, or they want to be an active investor and they just don't know where to start, maybe they don't have that money to hire a coach or join a program, like I said, just find a job in the industry. Whether there's so many different jobs, it doesn't even have to be directly related to investing, but maybe you work with a title company, maybe you work for an agent. You could be a transaction coordinator. There's just tons of jobs, and maybe it's a step back from what you're currently doing, depending on where you are in your career. Yeah. But if you kind of look at it as a temporary learning experience, that's a very low risk way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are so many different spots you can kind of sit in to see the process. And one of my mentors, she was an attorney and then went to work as a property manager so that she could learn kind of asset management at its core. And I think a lot of people aren't willing to make those short-term sacrifices to kind of improve their overall long-term outlook. So I think it's just knowing, looking at everything from a long-term horizon, then like, oh, what does this mean tomorrow, the next week, the next month?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there's a lot of marketing out there. You'll see ads in your social media feed where people are presenting real estate investing as like kind of a get rich quick type deal, and it's absolutely not. It's a long-term strategy. It's a long-term play. It takes a lot of knowledge, resources, and like you said, you have to think about it in the long term.
Yeah. You have to formulate a long-term plan and then stick to that plan, right? Because that's the other thing is It's like people come up with this plan, even people, and I say these things like people, like I've made these mistakes, so it's not it's not exclusive to everybody else. I'm just saying, sometimes you get, okay, yes, I have a mentor. My mentor says this is a long-term thing. I need to have this long-term horizon and sort of reverse engineer how I'm going to get there. And then sometimes you just get impatient, or you get, it's not going exactly the way. And it's not that it's not that you shouldn't pivot, but you have to realize like you really need to look at it in that long-term perspective. When you were working for this other investor, so you said you bought your first property. Kind of walk us through what happened then. Like you were working for them for 3 years. Now you started to grow your own portfolio. What types of things were you doing in that, kind of independent of your job?
Yeah. So when I took that job, I was very upfront, transparent with my intentions. I told them that I'm interested in investing. I want to learn about it. I eventually want to get my own properties and get started. But it took me about 2 years of just working in the industry, learning about real estate. There's just a lot of components before I even got started. And actually I would say the very first investment I made was actually as a private lender to my boss, who was the investor. And he approached me and said, hey, if you want to get started, if you have a little extra money that you're okay with investing, maybe it's not liquid, it might take a few months, I'll probably just buy a property and then pay you back in a few months. I'm going to secure it with a note and mortgage. We kind of talked through the details, and I said, oh, I'd love to do that. That'd be great. That's a great way for me to get started, because I didn't really have to do much besides loan my money, but I was investing in property. I didn't, and I got paid back monthly payments with interest. And so I learned the whole process of I guess private lending through that experience. And then I thought, well, I want to be a lot more active. I want to own my own properties. I want to invest for cash flow. So how do I do that? So over time, I had a lot of conversations with my boss, the investor. I was always picking his brain on everything. And, after private lending with him for a little bit, I said, I want to start my own portfolio. I want to get my first property. He said, okay, great. You can start working leads in our system. And so I learned how to talk to leads, people selling their houses. And I would just get on the phone, talk to people, learn about their situation. And my very first property that I got, so actually I got about 7 or 9 properties under contract. My first 7, I think it was 7, actually got canceled. We had to cancel all of those contracts for various reasons. Some of them were title reasons. Some of them were just kind of strange properties that didn't really fit our business model. We didn't know what to do with them. Some of them I got them under contract at too high of a price. All of that was a big learning process for me. But, I could have easily gotten discouraged and quit and decided this isn't for me. But I I had a big goal, and I still have a big goal of being financially free through real estate. So I kept at it. And um, my first investment that I got to keep was actually a mobile home on land. It was a vacant mobile home, had been sitting there for a while. And I ended up selling it on owner financing. So I created a note and went through that whole process and had created a cash flowing property, and I used my own money for that one. We had my husband and I had a little bit of money in our savings, but I mean, I paid, I think, $18,000 for that property. It was about an acre, and I think I sold it on a note for 50,000. But I was, I was getting interest. It's now paid. The buyer paid it off now, but that was my first deal.
Yeah. So it's so smart. And I think, again, I mentioned earlier, like, that people don't realize how many different ways there are to be involved in real estate. And like, you just, in your own experiences, just listed off several of them, right? So you can be a private money lender. Every one of these strategies too has its own sort of upside and downside, right? It's like there's you just got to figure out what fits in your life, and maybe it's a combination of things. You have some income generating real estate activities, and then you have some long-term buy and holds that are more for your future portfolio and that passive income. So it's just kind of really cool to hear that you did that. And again, it's like, here you had some money in savings, you were able to find a relatively inexpensive property, bought it, make money on that, on the sale price, but also, like, here's another smart thing, I'll just sell or finance it. And then what happens if they don't pay me back? Well, you get the property back. Like, it's just, there's kind of all of these things that people would look at that and see, like, oh, what are all the things that could go wrong, all the negative what ifs. But it's, to me, it's like, well, what if it works? And most of the time it does. Like, most of the time it works, and you move forward to the goals move forward in the direction of the goals that you have. So it's just kind of a really cool story. The investor that you were working for, was there like a specific strategy? It sounds like maybe a mix of things. You're doing wholesaling and flipping and holds, or what? Because I asked that only to say, kind of, what have you gone on to focus on your own, or maybe it's diverse as well.
Sure. So his business model, his main goal with his business, and he has small business. I think there are 4 people working in his company total. And his main goal was just to build up his portfolio for financial freedom, which he did that. His business was running on its own. All of his portfolio was paying for all of the business expenses, his salary, the people working for him. So, he was basically retired, but still working in his business because he enjoyed it. But he mainly purchased distressed properties and created notes, selling them on owner financing, which is similar to that first deal that I got. But he also did wholesaling because some of the deals just didn't really fit, weren't the greatest for owner financing, or sometimes in business you may need to generate a little more cash because real estate can be very seasonal. So he would also do wholesaling, but that was actually his main strategy when he got started. And then he's just transitioned to mostly owner finance properties. And then now he's transitioning to being completely focused on notes, buying and selling notes. And so I really pretty much took that same model, and I'm doing that for myself. I love the owner finance strategy. That's how I'm building my portfolio, because I'm also investing for cash flow. I love the idea of, I don't really like to use the term passive income, but I guess receiving that monthly cash flow from my properties. I do have a few rentals. I've dabbled in fix and flips. And it's just, for my personal goals, I like to be kind of as hands-off as possible. And the owner finance model is very hands-off, meaning I don't have to do the repairs. I don't have to manage contractors. I buy them as is and sell them as is, and I don't do anything to them.
Yeah, it's very smart. And it's none of it's like completely hands off, as you sort of alluded to there. There's some level of, you need to be involved in some way. And,
Mm-hmm.
as your business as an entrepreneur and as a real estate investor grows, the amount of hands on is going to decrease. You're going to be able to, sort of do less and less because you're going to be able to have hired yourself out of a job. And that's really ultimately the goal. But it's interesting. I've had a few people on the podcast that have been involved in real estate for a while, and a number of them have sort of gone that way towards the lending side of things, like sort of becoming the bank. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact is, that is like, if you can do it, that's fairly easy. Again, it's not completely hands off, but it's like you're essentially managing transactions, and then as long as those people continue to pay those notes, there's really nothing else to do but collect that money. If you're, and usually, I don't know if you have a servicer, but that's another thing that I think
Yeah.
sometimes people don't recognize. It's like, you can, even that part of it, like the collecting of the money, gets handled by someone else. So it's certainly can be extremely hands off. At some point, you're going to have someone default on a note or something like that. You're going to have to do something about it. But have you encountered that at all? Has that been something that has been an issue for you?
Fortunately, I have not, but I do use a loan servicing company, um, and if I believe they help. So yes, you can go through the foreclosure process if that happens. But fortunately, I haven't experienced it yet. But I'm preparing myself because I know it will happen. It's just
Right.
statistically it will happen. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the bigger your portfolio gets, the more likely that somewhere in there's going to be some sort of problem. And so, and that, again, any asset class, any strategy, that's the reality of investing. But it's still like, this is where it comes down to, understanding your market, understanding the landlord tenant laws there, understanding what are the rules, having the right sort of documentation in place for these private notes you can have. So you've already established with that person, hey, if you don't pay, these series of things will happen, and so it's a surprise to no one. And as you just mentioned, you prepare yourself, you have the sort of systems in place to handle that. And maybe it is that the loan servicer handles most of that for you. I'm not really sure how that works in that scenario, but it's, you just kind of be prepared for something like that to happen, and you deal with it when it does.
yep, absolutely.
So in that, kind of strategy, there's a lot of times when people talk about real estate, there's a lot of reference to, kind of the tax benefits and things like that. So one of the things that I think private money lending, note investing, all of that, I think has been interesting to me. But what little I've done, I didn't feel like there was a whole lot of tax benefits in there for me. Which, again, oftentimes it's a combination of strategies. But maybe I'm just wrong. I was wondering if you had any kind of ideas or insight as to how to balance your portfolio, and how that, those notes get treated and things like that, as far as, is it taxed as if it's earned income, is it passive income? How does that all work?
So it can get pretty complex, and I'm not a CPA. I have a CPA. He would be way better at going over this, but um, I believe I honestly I don't know what it's classified as, but I do kind of diversify my portfolio. I do have some
Right.
rentals. I mean, there are advantages to having rentals because um, there's the appreciation, there's building equity, there's tax benefits. I know there's a lot of tax benefits there. So I love the notes, but there are some drawbacks as well. So that's why I'm I'm also keeping rentals in my portfolio. And my goal actually for 2024 is to try and buy my first mobile home park. I would love to have a mobile home park. But yeah, as far as tax benefits, penalties, or I mean the tax strategies, that stuff. That's why I have a CPA.
Right.
he, you know, he handles that. We talk about it. We have our meetings, but um, I kind of I actually have a fractional CFO, and he also helps me with a lot of that stuff, and he helped me find a good CPA. So I trust his advice.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, put the little disclaimer here. Neither of us are CPAs. And that was that was not a question that I expected you would have, kind of all of the tax code related to it. I was just kind of curious your experience with how it's been handled. And I think really the main point here is exactly what you said, is it's like diversification of your portfolio and then bringing in the people on your team, like your CPA, like your fractional CFO, that can help manage kind of all of that together and see how it all ties in. And it allows you, when you're keeping track of all of that stuff and kind of seeing how it all relates. Now, as you mentioned, like you're looking at buying a mobile home park. Now you can say, okay, here's my portfolio. What do I want to do to that portfolio, and what action steps achieve that, right? And so, as you said, like buying a mobile home park is going to be at another step or another piece of that portfolio. And it's just kind of always looking at that, how it's going to look from like an overall picture. I know people that have flipped hundreds, if not thousands, of houses, and they were like, I just got burnt out, and also there was no tax benefits to it. It was just like having a job. So it's like they moved over to starting into getting into buy and hold, or passively investing into like syndications or something that has depreciation in it, that kind of thing. So it was just it's kind of how you tie it all together, I think, is such an important piece of the puzzle. Are you
And I think one thing, sorry, there's a little
No, no,
delay there.
I
I
know, I
just
know.
wanted to mention um, that, the beautiful thing about real estate, one thing I love about real estate investing is there are so many different strategies, so many different paths. It's endless learning. And for someone like me, I'm just a curious person. I love to learn. And so you can kind of enter into real estate investing in one strategy, and you can kind of level up to different things as you get more experience, more knowledge, more relationships, more resources. That's one thing I love about it. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, 100% agree. It's you find your way in somehow, right? Whether it's somehow am I going to be passive? Am I going to be active? Am I going to do mobile home parks? Am I going to do new development? Am I going to do whatever it is, note investing? You pick a thing, you find a thing to get in, you learn about it, you educate yourself, maybe go work for someone as you did, and then you decide, how am I going to expand on that over time, as different levels of mastery, I think is kind of what it comes down to. And so that's, your journey is sort of the perfect story of like how people can just get into this and start doing it. And as long as you don't look at it as this has to work tomorrow, it's just it's kind of like a game that you're playing that doesn't stop. That's really how it feels to me in a lot of ways. It's like, okay, what can I do to, let me pull out the rule book again and see what I can do to, add to my portfolio or my strategy or whatever it is. So I think such great points that you made there. Do you have, like, what are you looking for? Put this out there for people listening. Like, what are you looking for a mobile home park? Maybe someone will have something they can bring your way.
Sure. So my primary market that I invest in is Central Arkansas. So I'm very familiar, with the economy, with the housing prices, with the demographics of people living there. And with my owner finance properties, the notes that I hold, a lot of them are mobile homes on land. I love mobile homes on land. There's, Arkansas in general has a very affordable cost of living compared to a lot of places in the United States. But even so, it's kind of a less populated state as well, and there's just a lot of demand, and we see this everywhere. There's more and more demand for affordable housing, and so there's just a ton of buyers for these types of properties. And when you're getting it on land, it's not in a park, so they're not paying the lot rent. They have their own. I try to buy stuff that maybe has an acre or two, and they have their own space, and so I can sell those all day long. There's just a lot of people looking for homes like that. So I would love to stay in Arkansas, but I understand mobile home parks. They're really not making any more of them. So I would be open to other areas of the country. If I can find one in Arkansas, great. I'm looking to get started with a smaller park, maybe something that has, I don't know, around 30 spaces or under. I would eventually like to partner with people, other people who are already investing in mobile home parks. But at this point, I'm kind of more on the active operator. Like, I could partner with somebody that maybe wants to be a lender, and then I'm the operator. I would be open to a relationship like that, of course. But if I have to get started on my own, using my own capital, a smaller park would be a little easier for me to get into.
Yeah, that's great. I think a really nice strategy, and I just think one thing that keeps standing out is, like, you seem very patient about your approach, which so many people aren't, and maybe I'm sure you have in your head days where you don't feel patient about it, but it is the way to go. It's the way to go in real estate is just recognizing that, hey, I'm going to do this thing. It might take a while to get, to each level that you want to, but that's okay. That's just kind of how it goes. I want to switch gears, and ask you the questions that I ask every guest, and I don't know, there's so much delay. I'm sorry about that. But the first question is based on the name of the show being Know Your Why. So I always ask each guest, what is your why? What's driving you? I know you've had such a really cool journey here, and I just, what keeps you going to sort of bigger and bigger levels of success?
Yeah, so my ultimate goal is just financial freedom, being able to provide for my family, teach my kids entrepreneurship. I think it's really important to model for them that, I think it's just there's this level of self-sufficiency to being an entrepreneur, creating wealth through real estate, owning a business. So that's very important to me. I also like being a job creator. I do have some people working on my team. And so that's very motivating to me when other people are depending on you. And then also just, real estate is a very male dominated industry, real estate investing. That is only, I think the last statistic I read was somewhere around only 32 or 35% of women are real estate investors. So that to me shows that there's still a huge disparity in wealth creation, owning assets, access to capital, access to property. And so I'm really driven to help close that gap little by little as much as I can. So I'm always networking with other women, answering questions. I'm actually in the process of launching a course where I'm going to be teaching women how to wholesale real estate, because that's one of the ways I got started. I still do it every day in my business. It's an easy way, not easy, but it's an accessible way to get into real estate investing, especially if you don't have any money to get started with. So that really drives me as well. I know that was a couple of things, but those are the major things.
It's okay to have more than one. That's allowed. I think, and I think, that concept of empowering other women and stuff, I think is really meaningful. It is a very male dominated industry, that's for sure. So I think, but it for myself, I've actually had a number of women as mentors, and so it's kind of interesting. I know that it is male dominated, but a lot of my experiences and sort of mentoring have come from women in the industry. So it's pretty cool to see what people do. Second question for you, Lindsay. Tell us something about yourself that isn't common knowledge, special skill, a hobby, anything that you're comfortable sharing, and let the listeners know you a little better.
Sure. So I enjoy powerlifting. I like to work out, and I like to I like to lift really heavy. I think it's a lot of fun. I have not competed in any powerlifting competitions yet because I've spent the last 4 years having children. But it is on the future goals list. I just really enjoy the challenge of lifting more, working on my strength. It also helps with stress and mental health a lot. So I'm 5'2", I think, and I'm not, visibly muscular. So I think people would be really surprised to find out that I power lift.
Yeah, that's, I agree 100%. Like from a mental health standpoint, exercise, going to the gym, like all of that is very important to me as well. The funny thing is the gym I go to has a lot of power lifters. I am not one of them. That's not my my focus. I like exercise from a functionality standpoint, and it's fun to lift more weight. But like I don't have any illusions that I'll ever be at a powerlifting meet. But I it's amazing to see the people that are doing it around me, just like that, because I said there's a lot of them there. Both men and women, and just oftentimes I feel like I would not have necessarily expected it, right? Like there's someone that doesn't have the stature that you might think that they were going to be a power lifter, and then I'm just blown away by how strong they are. It's just crazy. So good for you. I look forward to when you're eventually in one of those meets. That'll be great.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about powerlifting, what it has taught me, is that we are capable of so much more than we ever thought. And that's what I love about it. It's just constantly pushing to get stronger and do more.
Yeah. It really is physically and mentally very kind of uplifting, I think. So I completely agree with you. When people hear this and they want to reach out to you, what's the best way? And we'll put all of the links and stuff like that in the show notes.
Sure. So my website is Lindsay, and I spell my name with an A. So it's Lindsay. Sharma's my last name, properties.com. And then for my wholesaling course for women, it's 30daywholesalecourse.com.
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll put that stuff in the show notes so people can find you. Looks like we've also got your social media handles too, so we'll get all of that in there so people can connect. My final question for you, what piece of advice would you give to someone who wants to get started in real estate? They're hearing this, they're inspired by your story, and they're kind of like, what do I do now? What would you tell them?
I would say challenge yourself to take some kind of action and give yourself a deadline. One mistake I see a lot of people making is just the analysis paralysis. They're just reading all the books, listening to all the podcasts, and not doing anything. I challenge you to take one action. That action could be joining a local RIA, real estate investor club. Maybe you have coffee with an investor in your area, something tangible just to get your foot in the door and get the momentum going. And in this business, it's a people business. So leveraging people relationships is going to be so beneficial to you. So if you can't do anything else, just build relationships with people who are already doing this. That's probably anyone can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic advice. I think it truly is a relationship business, and it's interesting. Everybody, basically everybody says that. That's kind of like one of those the mantras of real estate investing, a lot of the mentorship programs and stuff. But it's actually remarkable to me how true that is, and just it's a very, I find, a very kind of supportive community, because there certainly are times when it's hard and a struggle, but like people just seem to be very willing to be there and help and listen and share their experiences to help you succeed. I think it's really a kind of a cool vibe that goes, for the most part within the real estate investing world. It does seem very community.
Yeah, I agree. And when I first got started, a struggle for me is, I was a graphic designer. I worked by myself most days, and just me and my computer and my designs. And I told myself this story that I'm an introvert. I'm not good at networking with people. It's awkward. And getting involved in real estate just really forced me out of that. And it's been so rewarding. Just connecting with other people, having conversations like this, sharing resources. And I agree, the real estate investor community is a very benevolent community. People, a lot of givers, a lot of helpers. And I think one thing, a common thread I see with a lot of investors are just that I need sort of that improvement mentality, and bringing others up with you.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of that, I'm not even going to try, I'm going to butcher whatever the analogy is, but that sort of one hand up, one hand down, right? Like that you're kind of, someone's pulling you up and you're pulling someone with you. So I think it's just a really kind of a great, I think, supportive group of people in general. So it really is nice. So, I want to say thank you. Thank you for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time to come and share your story. So thank you very much for that today. I'm sure you have some kids to take care of.
Yes, you're right. My kids just got home from daycare, and I can hear them creating chaos in the background with my husband. But I appreciate you having me on, Dr. Jason. It was a lot of fun talking to you.
Yeah, it was great. And folks listening, I know you're going to get a lot of value out of this episode. Please like, rate, and review the show so we can get more great guests like Lindsay. And thank you all for listening.
Hey there. I am Dr. Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?